Closing arguments are expected today in Jacob Hoggard's sexual assault trial. Hoggard is accused of sexually assaulting a woman and a teen girl in separate incidents in 2016. He testified this week and acknowledged that certain acts alleged to have taken place during the encounters, including spitting, slapping, and name-calling, could have happened because they were among his sexual preferences. But he denied touching either of the complainants without consent. We are now joined live by criminal defense lawyer Joseph Neuberger with more on the closing arguments. Thank you for joining us this morning. What are you expecting to hear from both the Crown and the defense in their closing arguments, and how do you feel that that's going to influence the jury's decision?
Closing arguments are extremely important because now the jury has heard all of the case examinations and cross-examinations and the witnesses and the accused. So it's extremely important, and the prosecution will carefully lay out the evidence supporting their argument that in both instances of these young women, there was absolutely no consent at play, and that he should be convicted. And they'll lay out the evidence in a summary format of both complainants. They may reference some of the evidence on cross-examination, which I think is important for the Crown to do. And they'll also lay out the law, because the law in sexual assault cases is highly complex and specialized. So there are certain things juries can consider and certain things they can't. So that's what I expect from the Crown, a very methodical, well laid out review of all the evidence and the law to prove that the case establishes that there's no consent. For the defense, this is extremely important. They will have to go through the evidence of both complainants, but lay out their theory and the evidence that supports why these young ladies are not telling the truth. And they'll refer to certain admissions in cross-examination, reliability issues, and things of that nature.
I'm wondering if you think some of the own words from Mr. Hoggard are going to come back to hurt him in this particular case. And I'm not just referring to the press release that was put out prior to this trial and after his arrest, where he admitted to, some misconduct or just treating women poorly. But when he was on the stand, he admitted to lying to his then girlfriend. He admitted to lying to the complainants. He admitted to lying to kind of get what he wants when it comes to relations with women. And then, the prosecutor said, well, listen, if you've admitted to lying throughout all these things in the past, why should the jury believe you right now? How much of those words are going to hurt his case?
Yeah, so, it's sort of, as I call it, low-hanging fruit. It's obvious that he would be not truthful with a number of people because he is, a singer. It's a very popular band. There's lots of opportunity for him to be with people. And so he was hiding these things. So, it's important for the jury to consider, but you have to consider it in all of his evidence. But, you make a very good point that there are certain deficiencies in evidence where somebody is not truthful with their current partner, that may not be truthful with, the discussions they've had with either of the complainants about loving them or about wanting to have, an ongoing relationship. These are important factors, but it does not necessarily mean that the act itself was not consensual. So the jury will have to compartmentalize that evidence and then assess everything as a whole.
Well, at the focus of this trial is the consent issue, but I'm also curious, Joseph, about the fact that the defense was really trying to take straight aim at some of the inconsistencies and discrepancies in some of the testimony. We're talking specifically about the timeline and sequence of events, but also about there was, some claims from claimant number 2 who told Mr. Hoggard that, not only that you raped me, but I had to get surgery, I had to get stitches as a result of this alleged assault. And it turns out that the medical records didn't back up those claims. So I'm curious, what are your thoughts on some of the discrepancies of the complainants and how that might actually benefit Mr. Hoggard?
Yeah, so again, good questions. We have to break it down into two things. One, there are certain inconsistencies with respect to timelines and how events unfolded. Now, this is where the law comes in, because there is a body of law and social science evidence about how people who are traumatized or involved in an act like this may be able to recount information. So some inconsistencies are going to be expected. Certainly time has passed as well. With respect to, an admission where in a conversation, somebody exaggerated and said, I need stitches, and in fact they didn't, is something for a jury to consider about the reliability and maybe the credibility of a witness. It's not insignificant. But again, what's very important is for the jury to take all this evidence in entirety. So you have to consider all the evidence of each complainant, both in their examinations in chief and cross-examination, and then conclude, are these inconsistencies enough for us to not believe the core of their evidence? And that's something that they'll have to carefully go through, but these are definitely factors for the jury to consider.
Well, closing arguments take place today. Instructions for the jury are expected to take place Monday or early next week. Criminal defense lawyer Joseph Neuberger, we appreciate your time and your perspective. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.